Gary, welcome to Facing the Canon.
Thank you for inviting me.
You are the founder, along with your wife, Kath, of The Entertainer. And what do you call yourself now? Are you the CEO?
No, I think I'm just the founder of The Entertainer.
The founder of The Entertainer. Now, tell us, when did that happen?
Well, it was back in 1981 that I lost my job and I needed another job.
And what was that job at the time?
I was working in Amersham in a bicycle shop.
Right.
And I spent a couple of months looking for another shop to open a bicycle shop, and that didn't come up, and the toy shop in Amersham came on the market, and Kath and I decided we'd have a bash at toys.
And now, how many toy shops have you got?
Well, we're 34 and a half years later,
yes.
And we have 100 depends what day it is today, but 7 or 8.
Yes.
And about another 8 opening before Christmas. So we're
really?
right across the country, including Scotland and Wales.
So you've done well.
Well, it's been okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you've got stores all over the UK?
Yep, so we cover the whole UK now. We have 3 in Scotland. We will have 5 in Wales by the end of the year, 1 in Jersey, 1 on the Isle of Wight. So we're pretty well spread. And
have you got any around the world?
We have, through a franchise agreement, we have 2 in Pakistan and 1 in another country quite near, Azerbaijan.
Oh, have you been to those stores?
No, but my oldest son has.
Yeah. Oh, does it not appeal to you to nip over and have a look?
No, not really, no.
No. Oh, do you not like the food?
We delegate the jobs, really.
Yeah, I see.
I go to Jersey and look after the Jersey
Sure.
shop.
So send your boy over. Yeah, check things out. How many staff do you employ, Gary?
Well, it varies depending on the time of the year, but we probably have about 1,400 regular staff. And we will this year probably just top over 2,000 at peak. So it's quite a lot of staff.
Now, you're known, Gary, as a Christian businessman, but you haven't always been a Christian. How did you become a Christian?
Well, when I started, when Kath and I started our business, there had absolutely no money at all. So I wasn't a Christian. I wasn't brought up in a Christian home. I didn't go to church. I felt the whole thing was irrelevant, old-fashioned, and for the first 10 years of being in business, it was really making money without any conditions. It doesn't really matter how we made money, we just wanted to make money. But it was when our 3rd shop was opening, I was thinking, you know, what's this life thing all about? What sort of treadmill am I creating for myself? What's the purpose of it all? And we had 3 children then. We have 4 now, but we had 3 then. And Kath had been to church for about a year with a friend, pretty regularly. I was quite antagonistic towards the whole thing. And I ended up at a men's breakfast at her church, just as our shop in Slough was opening. And really, I guess over that whole weekend, things just changed. I just heard things that I hadn't heard. And I don't know what people's perception of church, but I guess they're either what people have told you, what family have told you, what school told you, and I guess what I found in faith, it was absolutely nothing like the RE lessons at school. It's completely different, and I guess RE at school was a little bit like a history lesson. It was like things, you know, Jesus turned water into wine, Jesus healed people. That's great, that happened in those days, but it wasn't anything today. It wasn't living today. So after I went to this men's breakfast on the Saturday, I went to find the preacher from that men's breakfast. And I end up in this church 24 and a half years ago next Monday.
This very church that we're in now.
And I sat in the corner over there and I just looked around and I thought, wow, this is amazing, because I thought churches were normally cold. This one wasn't cold.
Yes.
Normally churches, I thought they were filled up with either old people, weak people or good people, and I wasn't old, weak or good.
Yes.
So I wasn't expected to be here. And normally this church has got a sort of a walkway down the middle, and this side of the church was completely filled up with young people. It was just rammed with under 20-year-olds. And I thought, but what are they all doing in church? And I was really challenged by the whole thing. And then just as the service was about to start, a lady jumped up and said, you've been praying about the service, and we've got 3 pictures So I was confused by the whole thing. There's pictures in church, what's it all about? And the first one was of a small sailing boat on the high seas, and it will only go in the direction that the wind and the tide will take it. And the second one was of a monkey wrench, a big adjustable spanner, and nuts and bolts and springs, and something wanted to be released. And the third picture was a whole row of railway arches, all blacked out, and somebody inside too frightened to come out. And I just sat at the back there. Well, when I arrived, there was nobody there. By the time the service started, I had people all around me, but I just burst out crying. And I just spent the next 2 hours at the back there with people around me crying for no reason at all. I don't know why it was. The pictures didn't mean anything to me.
And were you that type of person that cried at anything?
No, I don't cry.
No, you definitely weren't.
No, that wasn't me.
That was something had happened.
Yeah. It was just the most amazing 2 hours worth of peace. And I'm not really a peaceful person, as people who work with me know, but it was just something I hadn't experienced before. And really, what I experienced that day was, at school we'd been told about the Trinity, the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit. Or I think it was the Holy Ghost back in those days, Father, Son and Holy Ghost. But it wasn't really explained to me how the whole thing fitted together. And that's really, from the men's breakfast, what had struck me when Barry Kissel said, through the Holy Spirit, God can interact with us today. God can change our situation today. And I left that men's breakfast thinking, well, if there's any truth in what he's saying, it might just be worth following up. And certainly that was the next day on the Sunday, sitting in here, I just experienced the Holy Spirit in a most amazing way. And for the whole week after that, just amazing things happened. And, you could just dismiss them all as coincidences. But actually, it was just too... I drove down a road that I'd driven down for 7 years to our warehouse. I stopped at the road to turn right. And up on the hill, on the opposite side of the hill, was a dead tree in the shape of a cross. It'd been there forever. I'd never seen it before. It was just quite amazing. And God knew that I'm not a great person. I either needed to know it was true or it wasn't true. It might be not possible. It had to be one or the other.
So did you go back and believing that you had now changed, having had that encounter?
Yeah, life just changed. It was just like that road to Damascus type conversion.
How did you articulate that to your wife?
Well, I didn't tell her to start with.
Yes.
It was, I had to sort of try and work out what was actually going on, and, I thought I was quite sensible and logical about how I could work things out, but it wasn't logical, but something had changed. So it was the Tuesday that I said to Kath, we were going out, she had a babysitter, and I picked her up from the house, and we're driving out. She said, and I explained to them what happened on the Sunday, that I'd been to church, and she was quite amazed by it.
Oh, so where did she think you were then?
Probably gone to work.
Oh.
I was always out.
Always working?
Yeah, probably at the shop or
Oh,
the warehouse. So as we were driving down our road in Amersham, I said to her where I'd been and why I'd gone. I wanted to catch up with the guy who spoke at the men's breakfast. There was just something about him. There was a piece about him that was really attractive. So I pulled this leaflet out of my pocket and gave it to her and said, we're going back to the church tonight. And she said, well, where did you get the leaflet from? I said, from the church in Chorleywood. She said, yeah, but that leaflet's from Christ Church in Chorleywood. The guy that spoke at the men's breakfast was from Andrews in Chorleywood. You went to the wrong church.
Yes.
And it was true, because he wasn't here. We went to the wrong church, but actually God knows, he knows us in person, he knows our name, and he knows exactly where we are, so it didn't really matter that I went to the wrong church. So anyway, I bowled in the door, and the same guy that was on the door on the Sunday was on the door on the Tuesday, and he was a rep that sold me children's jewellery. Oh. And I went to get a cup of coffee, and the lady handing out the coffee was my two oldest sons' English teacher. And at the end of the evening, the guy came up and started speaking to me, and he said, where are you from? I said, oh, I'm from Amersham. And he stopped. He said, you're Gary Grant, aren't you? And I said, well, how do you know? He said, you used to live opposite us when you was a kid in Amersham. And those are the coincidences that just kept happening every day. It has been 24 years of an amazing experience all the way through. Great journey.
So your belief changed, and your belief affected your behaviour, your attitudes, your values. And did you start making changes in your business?
Well, I remember saying, I'm about a week in now, and I'm saying to Kath, well, if I'm a Christian, then where do I go from here? And I remember Kath saying, well, perhaps you should have a look at the Ten Commandments. And I know that you and I, over 20 years, have done numerous Ten Commandments series now. I seem to know them all. But I said, oh, OK, well, where are they? So she got a Bible out and looked through it. And I read them all. I said, oh, how many have I got to do? You know, choose 5 from 10.
That's it. What's the pass rate?
Yeah, exactly. And I kept saying to Kath, but some of them are they're all old-fashioned. There's a few, I'll do the murder one, but a few of the other things, they're a bit old-fashioned.
Yes.
So I sort of ticked half a dozen I thought would be okay, and I crossed a few off. And then over the last 20 years, I realised that actually they're not commandments. We're not given these rules that God's really restrictive. The guidelines that he gives us are really for our own good. And I guess one by one, I turned those crosses to ticks.
Yes.
So I realised actually the only people that get hurt when we do those things are either me or my family. So that was a good start. And then I started to think about the business, and I met with a local Christian accountant. And I said, David, you know, I don't think being a Christian and being in business are compatible. It just doesn't, I think it's going to work. And David said to me, Gary, well, maybe the way you're running your business and being a Christian isn't compatible. You need to change the way you're running your business. And that was absolutely true. And I was buying and selling stuff with the reps and doing all sorts of things which I wouldn't be happy to do today.
Kind of manoeuvring in the grey areas.
Yeah.
And cutting corners.
Yeah, ducking and diving, that sort of thing. But that's...
Del Boy deals and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I had to tackle the issue of honesty. Honesty that we were the way that we're running our business, and being prepared to have a business that will be accountable and transparent on all the things that we do. So as far as I'm aware, there's nothing wrong with our accounts. They're perfect. And if there is, it's been a mistake. It's not because we tried to do anything underhand. And then the area of products came up. And initially it was in the area of Halloween. And a lady came into the shop in 1980, so I'm not a Christian, it's October. She comes in the shop and said, Gary, I'd like to talk to you about your window. I said, well, what about the window? She said, you've got a witch in the window. I said, I know, it's Halloween. Witch in the window, bit of devil, you know, bit of spare blood, some hands, hairy, you know, there's all stuff in there, but it's just good fun. And she said, no, Gary, it's not just good fun. You're encouraging children to play with darkness. And I said, no, you know, it's just good fun. I'm not really, that's not the way it is. So anyway, this conversation went on for about 10 minutes. And I said, look, you don't understand. I'm in business. I buy things and I sell things, and I make a profit, and that pays the bills, and that's how we go about doing what we do. And she said to me, Gary, if you stop selling Halloween, the Lord will replace your lost business in other ways. And I just laughed at her. I thought she was completely mad. And after a little bit of sarcasm, we sort of showed her out the shop, and that was the end of it. So now it's the following May, and I'm thinking, what are you going to do about the Halloween stuff?
It's niggling you.
Niggling you. In fact, actually, at the time, I think I'd got to know you.
Yes.
And you gave the little verse. It says, avoid that even appears to be evil.
That's right.
Not just avoid evil. So I thought, OK, well, the Halloween's got to go. And so we only had 3 shops at the time. So 1991, Halloween went. And that showed one of our biggest company increases in turnover that we'd had.
Yes. And what was the response when you told various people that you're not stocking Halloween products?
What I did was, stupidly, I sort of took literally what this lady had said, that we shouldn't be encouraging children to play with darkness. So I got Kath to type up this letter, and I mailed it to 500 toy retailers and suggested they didn't stock Halloween either.
Yes.
And actually...
so you're a kind of an all-or-nothing sort of guy.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's kind of, you know, let's just do it.
So we just did it. So I got a big bag of hate mail back.
Yes.
And the one actually I stumbled across sometime in the last 6 months in one of our drawers in the office was from the company who sold me Halloween. They thought I was sort of double standards. I've been selling Halloween for 10 years, and now I was telling everybody not to buy it. And by the way, that was his business. And really, I guess the stances that we've chosen to make since then is that we're not campaigning for anything. I just want to do what's right for my business.
Yes.
I'm going to be accountable for what I allow to happen, and therefore I want to feel comfortable. And it doesn't really matter. We run a successful business.
Yes.
If one product's in or one product's out, it's not really going to change our year very much at all. I'm quite happy to just leave it with God. Those that honour me, I will honour.
So do you find, Gary, that God guides you as to your product selection?
Definitely. Yeah. So it's.
And have you had to make any other choices and decisions regarding products?
Yes, and I think some people might understand and others people might not understand, but I know how I feel when something's on my desk and it's not right. So I remember when Harry Potter came out. Now, I had been billed as the man who banned Harry Potter.
Yes.
I haven't banned Harry Potter. I think people should have choices in life, and parents should be happy with what they choose to buy for their children. I choose not to stock Harry Potter.
Yes.
Amongst other things that I've chosen not to stock. So when Harry Potter was about to be launched, I arranged for the company to bring the items to the office. And I thought, well, what if I don't know? So it was first thing in the morning, so I invited Kath to come along.
Yes.
I remember where I was sitting, and I remember the guy that brought them in, and he put the items on my desk, and I just said, I'm not stocking them. He said, why? I said, well, can't you see the box is just, it doesn't feel right. So, there's something in me that I know when I don't feel comfortable about the situation. It might not just be toys. I might not feel about different situations, and something in me it's like an alert, I guess. So we didn't stock Harry Potter. It was no big deal. It wasn't a big deal to start with. But then about September of that year, somebody went into one of our smallest shops down in Somerset, asked for Harry Potter. Manageress said, we don't stock Harry Potter. Why is that? So he left the shop, but he was a reporter for the local paper and then the Bristol Evening Post, and as a little side job, he did stuff for the Daily Telegraph as well. So within 24 hours, it was all over the press. Toy Man doesn't stock Harry Potter.
Yes.
He's going to lose a lot of money. And I kept saying, but it's not about the money. You don't understand. Yeah. I want to be happy with what I'm selling, but it's going to be a big selling toy. And actually, it was a fantastic selling toy that year. And I was chairman of the Toy Retailers Association. And God's got a huge sense of humour because the top winning toy that year was Harry Potter. And it's worse than that. Lego made a life-size Harry. So on the stage is the life-size Harry and Gary giving out the certificates.
Yes.
So all the photographs for Toy of the Year that year was Gary and Harry.
You and Harry. Yeah, exactly. Gary and Harry.
And then there's been other ones like...
But that year, was there a slump in your income?
No.
No, it didn't affect your sales?
No, I'm really comfortable that we sold the right number of toys that year. Our business was profitable, and we continue to expand.
So, as a Christian, Gary, you're trying to run your business with Christian values. Can you explain a little bit? How do you and your wife do that? What are your incentives?
We want to be at peace with what we're doing. And we'd like to give back at least as much as we take out. I think that's probably the easiest way of explaining it. So we don't leave church on a Sunday and then switch our faith brain off and switch our business brain on and then run for 6 days and then switch over again. We take our faith and in however we look at what we do as our business, make sure that we're comfortable in the way we're going about doing it. And sometimes that means we have to say no to different things. And sometimes, things go swimmingly well. But overall, our experience in 25 years is against what other people would say are all the odds. Our businesses continue to expand and continue to be successful. Now,
you made a decision not to open your stores on a Sunday. So what led you to making that decision?
Well, in 1991, it wasn't an issue because it was illegal. And in 1995, in June, it became okay to open. So I'm left with a dilemma now. So at this stage, I had 6 shops. And I'd heard you preach on Sunday trading. And I thought, well, keep the Sunday trading. Keep the Sabbath holy. And I thought, what am I going to do about the shops on a Sunday? So I thought, well, I'll have Sundays off and everybody else can work. But the Bible's actually quite clear about that. It says no working on the Sunday. You can't delegate the job. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll pray about it, and God will just say it's okay. So I did start praying June, July, August, and by September, I'm still praying, and there's no answer, and I'm getting pretty ratty now because I expect God to, in some way, God will show me what's going on. And I remember I was sitting in our conservatory in our house near Great Missenden, and it was mid-September, and I got really annoyed with God. I said, God, there's no point in me praying if you don't answer prayers. It's just as simple as that. And I heard him say to me, Gary, no amount of praying is going to get me to change my mind.
Yes.
So I think sometimes we don't get an answer we think we don't get an answer to prayer, but actually we don't want the answer that we have, so we think a bit more praying will change the answer. And of course it doesn't work like that. And sometimes we just don't get an answer to prayer, and that's the way it is. And as the Lord's Prayer says, let thy will be done. Not, it's not our will, it's God's will. So
God made that clear to you?
Made it clear to me. So it wasn't really a big deal, because this is 1995. Probably for the next 3 to 5 years, Sunday trading really didn't get going. By the time we hit year 2000, Sunday trading is now really underway, and a big number of the institutional landlords are now promoting 7-day trading. They are they normally get a base rent, and they get extra money from us depending on how much we take, so it's a turnover top up. And there was a sense that if I didn't open on Sundays, they may have been losing out. And so we said, no, we're not opening on Sundays, and a whole number of sites weren't offered to us. But as we ended up in the mid 2005, 6, 7, 8, basically all of our competitors, one by one, just went bust. So we ended up with about 6 chains of shops, about 150 stores, all trading on Sundays, all selling any products they wanted, all went out of business. So it takes quite a bit of a machine to run city centre and shopping centre shops. So if you take our Blue Water shop or our Lakeside shop or our White City store, some of those shops are selling between 1 and 1.5 articulated lorries of stock a day in that last 3 weeks running up to Christmas. So there's a massive amount of churn. So you need the infrastructure, the computerisation and stuff. And therefore, we are now one of the only retailers geared up for running that type of shop. So then we were invited to go into a shopping centre in Blue Water. A competitor of ours had closed, it was June, and they rang and said, would we open and just open a toy shop from June till Christmas? And we said, well, we would, but we don't open on Sundays. Oh, don't worry about that. Just keep the toy shop going for 6 months, and then, after Christmas you can close it. So we moved into Blue Water. This is about 15 years ago. We started trading 6 days. And halfway through that 6-month period, they said, you know what, you're taking more in 6 days than the other guys are taking 7. Now, it might be that we're running our business differently. It could be having different products. But actually, we do believe that we overperform in 6. So I don't think I'm losing out on the 7th. But if I am, I'm certainly not worrying about it. And that 6 months turned into 3.5 years. They just said, oh, just stay again, just stay again, just stay again. And then there was a 5-year gap, and then they had us back in a permanent shop in Blue Water. But we want to be, it isn't me winning against landlords. I want to be the very best tenant I can for my landlords. I want to offer the very best service. I want our customers to have a great service in our stores, and I want to maximise the income for ourselves, for our business, to make it successful, but also to make sure the landlord gets more than his fair share of rent for that particular space that we have.
Now, you didn't go to business school, you don't have an MBA, you do have an O-level in maths.
Yes. And a cycling proficiency test.
Oh, yeah. So you managed one O-level, so that's good. So are you just a natural at business?
Well, is there a natural at business? Are you a born entrepreneur? Is there something in you that you start off with? And the answer is, I don't know. But life at home when I was a kid was tough, and therefore if I wanted anything, I had to go out and earn it. Nothing was just freely available. We had no money in the family. So between, 6 and leaving school at 16, I had loads of jobs. I worked in a sweet shop with Mark Caliph and Cubs. I worked on a milk float, paper rounds, morning, evening. I did loads and loads of jobs, and that's how I earned to buy my bike, to buy my moped, to buy my first van, which was my first car. And then when I left school, I went to work full-time for the bike shop. So I guess I'd always been in retail, so I guess if you bought for one price and sold it for more, that was called a profit. You'd like to get by. So maybe there was just something in me, but where that came from, John, I've no idea.
No, but obviously you and Kath opened your first store in Amersham, and are you surprised at how well the Entertainer has done?
more than surprised, I can't believe it. You know, because there are really educated people in the marketplace. There are big companies that with huge resources that could probably, I guess, if they decide to have done this.
Yes.
But it hasn't been easy. It has been hard work. If I look back in my life, I can see that there's been people en route that have encouraged me, helped me, supported me, kept me pointing in the right direction, that have enabled me to get from with the one store.
Yes.
In fact, there was one of our suppliers back in the very early 80s. He came into the store regularly because he lived locally to here, and he said, Gary said, you're just like Jerry Taylor. And Jerry Taylor at the time had 24 toy shops, and he was the pioneer in toy retailing at the time. So he saw something in me that I didn't know what I was looking for. But bit by bit, our business expanded to the size it is today.
Now, what was it that one of your teachers said to you when you were at school?
I've obviously told you too much over the years, haven't I? But anyway, I was collecting in Amersham for one of the charities that we support. And it wasn't one of my teachers, actually, it was my scoutmaster.
Yes.
And he came hobbling up and he said, Gary, he says, I told your mum you'd either be locked up or a millionaire.
Yes.
I haven't been locked up.
No. Now, you're about to enter a very busy period for the entertainer leading up to Christmas. Do you find, obviously, Christmas is about the birth of Jesus, but are you more concerned about selling toys?
I'm getting a balance. At the end of the day, I have to be commercial, and it is all about the next 3 months. So we're just entering the last quarter of the year. We've 60% of our year's turnover to do. We've got, probably doesn't mean anything to you, but we've got, I worked it out, 1,150 articulated lorries full of stock to sell.
Yes.
So it's not an insignificant amount of volume to shift in just 12 weeks. So we're very focused on the business, but we don't forget that this next period is running up to Christmas. So we don't say, well, Sundays doesn't matter, we'll just open for Sundays for Christmas. It's really important that my staff get their days off, at least one day. Hopefully running up to Christmas they get 2 days off, but that last month we're really under pressure. So a good number of staff are working 6 days. They need time off, they need time to recharge their batteries, more importantly, they need time to spend with their families. And we would encourage that.
Now, a recent statistic came out that most parents in Britain will spend £300 on toys for their children at Christmas.
I think the statistic says that each child will have £350 spent on them. So it might not be parents' money, it could be grandparents' money.
Yes.
I think I noticed it's.
Do you think it's become very, very commercial?
Yeah, you missed that bit, John.
Do you think it's become very commercial?
If it wasn't for Christmas, we wouldn't have a business, because we don't make enough money if we had 12 months like the first 9 months of the year, our business wouldn't work. It is all about Christmas because it's so back-end loaded.
Sure.
But has it become very commercial? Well, it has, and all we can do is to try and, about a dozen of our shops, we have nativity scenes in the window, so we forgo having toys in there. We try and remember why it is we're celebrating Christmas. But that's the world that we live in. I don't think I can change that, or it's my job to change it.
Do you sometimes feel that parents take their children into your stores, but they can't buy the toys that the children want because they don't have enough money?
Well, I hope that I carry toys covering all price points. So you could look at a range of Lego, and it might be they want the latest Millennium Falcon at £130, and that might be out the reach of a number of parents for Christmas. But I have Star Wars Lego for £10, £12, £30, £50. So
yes.
It won't be a Millennium Falcon necessarily, but I will have products at many different price points for all budgets. Because again, I don't, we support a lot of charities that support people that have got themselves in debt and finding life difficult. We wouldn't want people pushing themselves into debt and finding that the kids have had what they wanted on Christmas Day, and then they spend another 6 months trying to get out of the hole that they're in.
Tell us more, Gary, about the charitable side of your work, of what through your business. What do you do? Well,
it might have been about 6 months or a year into being a Christian, and Cass said to me one day, said, when are we going to start tithing? So I said, well, what's tithing? She said, it's when we give 10% of our income to the church. And I looked and I said, you're mad, we're never going to do that. I said, we earn too much, you know.
Yes.
So about 2 weeks later, when we started tithing,
yes.
we found that actually over the years, we've never really been able to outgive God. As fast as we give, it's not an economy that an accountant could sit down and work out for you, but it works. So we made the decision at a very early stage that we would tithe our own income, but also we would tithe our company's profits as well. So in our company profits, in our accounts, there's a line like rent, a line like labour. It's called charitable giving. So we give away 10% to charities. So we predominantly support children's charities, both in our local communities. So we try and do things within the areas in which our shops operate. We do things on a more national basis, and we do some international work as well. So,
can you give us some examples of the kind of things that you do?
So we have worked with street children around the world, and Kath and I have both been and seen the work that's going on the streets.
Is that in Guatemala?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't think you can go to these third world countries and see the conditions that some children are living in and just say, well, that's just their country, and come back and do nothing. I think there is something that clicks in you that says, I can make a difference. We run a local charity called Restore Hope, working with families and children and youth, just trying to make a difference. And I guess if you've had a tough upbringing and you look at another kiddie and say, I can make a slight difference to that child's life, well, and you were able to do it, why wouldn't you do that? But also I think that our business has the ability to facilitate generosity. And this is something that's really important to me, because I noticed how generous our staff were. When anybody came in the shop and wanted a present or something for a raffle, they just did give the stock away. They were really generous. So I thought, if they want to be that generous with our stock, maybe they could be generous with, we could encourage them to be generous. So we lead from the front. So we do tithe our own profits. Therefore, people can see who work for us that actually generosity is within us. We're not asking them to be generous and then not doing it ourselves. So we introduced payroll giving as a concept in our business about 4 years ago, and somewhere in the region of 45% of our staff now give monthly to a charity of their choice. So we encourage them, we match what they give, but that isn't the point. The point is they have chosen with their own money and a little bit of persuasion to find a charity that they think they really want to support. And then thirdly, that's the business, that's the staff. Thirdly is our customers. And just over 3 years ago, again, our IT guys came to me and said, look, there's this new concept called pennies. And when people pay with their credit card or debit card, they can round their purchase up to the nearest pound. So it could be 99p, it could be a penny. You can't choose, it rounds it up to a pound. So actually it might be 4 years now. It is 4 years. So 4 years ago, July, just gone, we introduced pennies, and we now raise about £320,000 a year. So it's raised. We'll pass £1 million before this Christmas, and that goes to the major regional children's hospitals around the country. And then just next week.
And is that in order to buy equipment? And
we just give it to the children's hospitals.
Have you visited some of these hospitals?
Yeah. So Kath is a Great Ormond Street nurse.
Right.
In fact, ward sister. So we support Great Ormond Street, and actually we've also used the service of Great Ormond Street, so we know how amazing that hospital is when parents are in a situation where they desperately need support. We've supported York Hill we've supported lots of different hospitals, about 12 all around the country.
Yeah, and this is obviously, you and Kath have a heart for children and vulnerable children, Now, now you had a really good year last year, Gary. Mm-hmm. Very successful.
Really?
Yeah, I looked it up.
Did you, John?
And so John Wesley, I don't know if you know this, Gary, he gave away 90% of his income. Yes. And the reason he gave away 90% of his income is because he believed that 10% for him was sufficient to live on. Mm-hmm. So you're actually, 10% sounds great, but you're actually only giving the minimum. So why don't you double it? Why don't you give more? Because you're making a lot of money.
Yeah. But John, I do know what the accounts say, and
Yes.
I think my salary is probably about 4% of our profit.
Yes.
And therefore, I do give more. And if it wasn't for the money that I don't get myself, because it's called company profits,
Yes.
that enable me to reinvest in growth and create jobs,
Yes.
and jobs create more people giving on a monthly basis and more customers give on pennies, we'd actually end up giving away to John. So no, that's...
Really? That wouldn't work? That's
work,
not
John.
a good business
No,
practice?
No.
Really? No, OK.
We may well get to a stage where
you can.
Where we can give more, yeah. So it'll be more to charity, more
Yes.
to children, more to grandchildren. I think that's how it probably works.
Is that the way it works?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
But do you think you could give too much to grandchildren?
Well, I need to have that conversation with their parents.
Them, don't you? Wouldn't it be good not to spoil them so that they learn the value of money?
There is a balance, and I hope that the legacy we'll leave won't be how many shops. If that's all I get remembered by is the number of shops that I had, then I think I probably failed. I do hope the legacy we leave will be something that's much longer lasting than that, and the impact that we've had on many, many lives through the different things that we're involved in.
So, legacy, Gary, how do you see the future? Obviously, 2 of your sons are now in the business. Would those 2, would they have got the job if they weren't your sons?
Yes.
Well, that's a great credit to both you and Kath and to them.
But the thing is, they would only have got the jobs if they had the skills and talents to do the job that they're doing.
Yes.
So the children don't have a right to turn up to work and just say, here I am, here's a job. So both the children have turned up with their relevant qualifications and skills. And neither of them, they're both directors today, but neither of them started off in that role.
Yes.
They started off and they worked through the business. And I think if you talk to any of the staff or the senior management team or any of the directors and say, has Gary managed to implant one of the boys in a job that they're not capable of doing, I don't think many of them will say that I have done that. They've earned the positions that they have.
Well, that's wonderful. And it's wonderful for a parent to be able to say that they have such confidence in their children with regard to a particular business.
I think
do you see yourself eventually passing it on to them?
Yes, because I think we have very complementary skills. I don't think either of the boys can do quite what I do, and I now can't do what they do because they're really good at what they do. And I hope that we will be able to pass the business down through a generation.
Yes.
I think the thing is, the market, things are changing so quickly. What does retailing look like in 10 or 20 years' time? We're going to have to change a lot, adapt a lot, be very open about embracing change. Because who would have known 20 years ago that the internet could have been 20% of our business?
Yes.
Things are moving very quickly.
Do you do staff appraisals, annual staff appraisals?
We do, yes. It's the one thing I really don't like doing.
Yes.
So of the 6 that I have to do, actually when I get going they're quite good fun, but it's just looking forward to doing them, which I don't. But
yes.
Our staff do have appraisals, and we've got a fantastic tier of how they go on throughout the business. And
so if Jesus did an annual appraisal on you,
yes.
What do you think Jesus would say to you?
It would be a bit much like my school report. Could do better, I'm sure.
But do you think he might put his finger on some areas that you might need to work on?
Absolutely. I'm not perfect. I'm doing my very best to be the best I can be, but I'm not perfect. So I'm not here being interviewed because everybody should be like me, because there's many fantastic people out there, not necessarily Christians, who are doing things better than I'm doing them, but I'm doing things as best I can do with the skills and talents that I have. But there are always areas of weakness, and some I don't mind dealing with, and others I put in the drawer.
So the areas of weakness.
Yeah.
Are you able to highlight 1 or 2 of those?
Well, not really, because that question wasn't on the sheet, was it?
No, you brought it up. Do you lack patience?
Yes.
Has Jesus not helped you with that yet?
Just a little bit. I'm not quite as impatient as I used to be.
Yes. Do you lose your cool very quickly?
Yes.
Yes. So self-control may be an area
Keep going, John.
that could work on.
Nobody's listening.
No. But we're all, of course, we're all work in progress, aren't we, Gary? Mm-hmm. But in the years that you have been a practicing Christian, you've obviously changed significantly, and we're all changing for the future. Mm-hmm. How do you see your future? Do you sometimes dream of maybe passing on the entertainer to your sons and doing something else?
Do I ever think I will get up in the morning and not have the figures coming through on my phone or the reports running off on the computer? I'm not sure, but you know, I can't keep the pace up that I've been living my life at. It's just too fast. And also, there's many jobs now in the business I can't do because it's just too complicated. I don't have the skill sets anymore. So we've got a great team of directors around us now that have got all the skills that I don't have, that are taking us into new areas. And I just need to have complete confidence in everybody that we can achieve what we're achieving. So I think there will become a point where they can actually do it better than me and I don't need to go to work. But I'm not sure how I'm going to manage that. Kath doesn't want me at home 24 hours a day anyway.
So you work, particularly now during this season, long days.
Yeah, I'm probably doing a 14-hour day as standard, I would think, at the moment. Certainly in the last quarter. There's just a lot to do. We need to make this quarter really work.
So there's no way you can do less and employ more people?
Well, I'm not doing it because I dislike doing it. Actually, I quite like doing it.
Yes.
And the thing is, I like to know what's going on. I have an eye for detail. I can pick up reports and see whether numbers are wrong or something's wrong. I just have that eye. So I just like to know what's happening. I'm not a control freak, but I do like to know what's happening.
You, how did you feel when recently you were esteemed by the toy trade and recognised for all that you have done and all that you've achieved?
Yeah, I was...
What was the actual award?
It was the Lifetime Achievement Award, and there was only about 12 people who've ever received that. And
so how did you first hear about it? Was it a phone call or a letter?
Yeah, I was in Jersey at the time on holiday, and they rang me and said, Gary, you're going to get an award next year. I said, what for? It says, a Lifetime Achievement Award. And I have to say, this has been... I was quite humble because actually I like giving. Receiving is much more difficult. I find it much more difficult. Yes. So to be singled out to receive something was quite difficult. So at the dinner this year, just hearing the really amazing and kind words that people were saying, so there was sort of a bit of a video with different interviews on, it was just amazing because I've just done I've just do what I do, really. It's difficult to explain, but I don't know that I've gone the extra mile than anybody else would have done. Maybe I have, I don't know, but yeah, it was humbling. But
it is humbling but very affirming when your own contemporaries are acknowledging you and acknowledging all the good that you've done. And it's a great credit to you and to your wife, Kath, for doing everything that you've done. We started earlier on in our conversation, Gary, about your Christian faith. The people that you employ, they're not necessarily all Christian, but they all know that you and Kath are Christians and want to run the company with Christian values. What do you say, whether it's to your staff or to your friends who aren't yet Christians, or they're kind of not necessarily anti, they're curious, but they don't quite get it? What would you say?
Well, I guess because I've been there. In fact, I wasn't even curious. I was anti.
Yes.
So I've come from the other side completely. I think whether there is life after death or not, I've got heads I win, tails I win. If I'm wrong, it doesn't matter. And if I'm right, I'm right. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So I've got absolutely nothing to lose. And I wonder what people make of church. What is in their minds when you say church? And it could be all the sorts of things I talked about earlier. You know, what did their RE teachers say? What did their parents say? What did the guy over the bar down the pub say? You know, and we've all built up an image of what church is, and is it a whole set of rules, and does God wander around with a great big stick beating you up over everything you do wrong, and all those sorts of things. But I would just say, just find out a little bit about it, because that's not been my experience. And I'm not sure that I ever knew really what unconditional love was. And that's what God offers me. He didn't, when I became a Christian, he didn't say, Gary, you're about 6 months too early. You know, if you could just get your act together, then you could become a Christian. He just accepted me as I was, warts and all the things that had to change. So I'm on this journey of change, and things are changing all the time. But I would say there's a great course called Alpha. And I really would commend Alpha to anybody who either just has no idea of faith at all, has over the years chosen to reject faith. You might have rejected it with the wrong information. I did. And I was 33 when I became a Christian, and I remember saying at the time, but why didn't somebody tell me? If this is how it is, why?
Sure.
33 years and nobody told me. And I've done Alpha, and Alpha is like a 10-week course. You get a meal, and there's 10 subjects which you discuss. And you can either be a part of the group but say nothing and just listen to what everybody else has got to say, or you can join in, but it gives you the opportunity of asking questions that actually the next guy says, I'm pleased you asked that silly question, because I want to know the answer to that. I didn't want to ask it. And at the end of the 10 weeks, I think just gives you enough knowledge to be able to think, well, you know, maybe there is something in this. And why I think it's a good investment in time, because we're all here for many, many, many years, and this is just like 10 3-hour slots in the whole of your life. We probably, many of us, spend more time concerned about our pension for retirement than we do considering eternity. So I think it's definitely worth doing it, even to get to the end of Alpha and saying, I've done it, nothing's changed. Because if something does change, if you are able to see something from a different point of view, then maybe your journey starts as well, and my journey's been really exciting.
For anyone listening, Gary, they're in business. They actually own their business, so therefore they have choices, and they can make significant choices. What advice would you give people in business from your experience?
Well, each one of us, regardless of where we are within the business, from ownership to working in the business, each one of us has an area of influence. And we can bring about our own values, whatever those values might be, in the area of influence that we have. And it's generally easier for that influence to filter down than it is to filter up, but we can have an area of influence. So I think that if people had been bold, and banks and other companies, and said, you know what, I appreciate I might be about to get myself fired, but I'm not prepared to do that. You know, stand up and be counted, and bring your value to the business, and if you get fired over doing the right thing, then you can be proud of your reputation. But I think people are being drawn along by profits that have to keep growing and growing and growing beyond expectation, and because I don't have that, as a private company, I don't have to prove anything to anybody. You know, as a board of directors, we can make a decision, shall we open shop, shan't we open shop, shall we have a year off? We can do all those sorts of things. Public companies, quoted companies, they have to keep showing growth. So when you end up with companies bringing profits forward because they've got to pad the profits up and doing things which really are not sustainable, then we're going to end up with more and more companies tripping up. And I said to my own guys this week, you know, what's our pit going to be? What are we doing that we're unaware of that we need to put our house in order? To the best of my knowledge, there's nothing I can put my finger on, but there'll be something that we just need to smarten up and do better. So I would say, if you're in business, or you don't have to be in business, whoever we are, in whatever we do, have values and stick by your values, and in the end, if that costs you your job, you know, people will know why you did the right thing.
Now, your best friend, your number one supporter, your number one critic is your wife.
Yes.
Where did you meet her?
Right, well, that's another long story, John. We've got all evening, but anyway, very quickly.
It's fine, they can listen in.
Yeah. Well, when I was about 16 and a half, life at home had got really tough. So I left home and I went to live in Diggs, in a little village not far from here. And a friend of mine from school's parents took pity on me and invited me round every Tuesday for a meal. So that was my sort of one Sunday roast meal I had once a week. And my friend from school's sister was at Great Ormond Street as a nurse. Kath was at Great Ormond Street nurse, and they took pity on Kath and invited her once a week for a meal. So in the end, both of us were having a meal there once a week, and that's how things started.
And you've been married how long?
We have been married now for, I'm going to get this wrong by at least a year. I think it's 37 years.
Yes.
No? How many is it? It's definitely getting on for that length of time.
And you've got 4 children.
4 children.
3...
No, you're out of date, John. 6.
No, I was going to say, and also daughter-in-laws.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Daughter-in-laws.
So I've got 4 children, of which 3 of them are married.
Yeah.
So I have 2 daughter-in-laws and 1 son-in-law.
And you've got
6 grandchildren.
6 grandchildren. So Christmas, how do you do the grandchildren? Do you take them to one of your shops and let them choose? No. No. Do you have a limit?
Sorry?
Do you have a limit?
We normally take advice from their parents.
That's
as to the
good,
sorts
actually,
of things,
isn't it?
what's on the list.
Yes, but do the parents normally want more?
No.
No, they're quite good.
I don't think our children ever grew up thinking, you know, that they could just have everything they want in the way of toys. They had their quota of toys, and we worked to a budget. But we treat all our children equally. We treat all our grandchildren equally. So we try and balance up what we buy and what we give them, because they're all at different ages. So they all want different things. And Christmas is fantastic. If I gave up work, it'd be because I want to spend more time with the grandchildren, because they're just amazing.
They're amazing. So you're actually a big little kid, really, aren't you?
Yeah.
What's your favourite toy?
What, right now?
Yes.
Well,
or maybe, no, what's your favourite toy of all time?
Well, my favourite toy when I was a kid was a scooter.
Was it?
Because it was my mode of transport, so I could get out of the house. My favourite toy today, that would have been one of my favourite toys, is the Thunderbirds. Tracy Island gets bigger, Tracy Island gets more sophisticated. It's now got lights and sounds and automatic ramps. It's quite amazing.
Why, have you got one on your desk?
No. Well, the thing is, John, there's a surprise in it, because you've got no idea what's in Thunderbirds 2's pod, have you?
Really?
No. It could be Thunderbird 4, it could be the mole. Are you not into Thunderbirds?
I was as a kid.
Were? Okay, yeah.
Do you want to get me one for Christmas?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thunderbird 2.
Gary, I've known you for over 20 years, and I know that you and your wife, Kath, are genuine, very gracious, and incredibly generous people. And although I tried to squeeze out of you some of the charitable work that you do, I'm very well aware that you do so much that you actually don't want people to know about. And I think that's very admirable. And I do know the hospitals that you've helped in. I visited one of the hospitals. And I'm very well aware that you have endeavoured to run a business with great integrity and honesty, and to support all the staff that you've got in as best way as you can, but also to help tens of thousands of other people, both throughout the United Kingdom and around the world. And it's a great credit both to you and to your wife, Kath, for what you've done, what you've achieved, and we wish you well for the future. And may you know even more success, because I know that when you do allow all the success that God's given you to be channeled to other people. So well done, Gary.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Gary Grant.